Hey listeners, Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network. I get the privilege of working alongside all of our creators at Enrollify, but I wanted to take just a quick moment to tell you about why I love the Talking Tactics podcast hosted by Diana Kibbolds. Every other Tuesday, Day drops a new episode where she focuses on a single tactic that moved the needle on any enrollment metric, from inquiries and booth visitors to apps completed and deposits, even registrations, you name it. The catch? The tactic had to be done with limited resources, either by a single person or a small but mighty team, or limited time, or maybe without a lot of money. The podcast format is fun and engaging, and it's just different from the more traditional 60-minute interview style shows. If you work in enrollment management or marketing, be sure to give Day's show a listen. You can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or just search Talking Tactics wherever you get your podcasts.
This is real Seth, so everyone listen. This is not robot Seth. No AI, not today.
How do I know for sure? Ha ha ha.
Well, you gotta listen to how we laugh. Yes, AI has not solved for that yet. That's the only thing they haven't solved for. But once they solve for the laughs, then they're the last one laughing.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your Monday morning energizer covering insights and trends in higher ed marketing and enrollment. I'm Mallory Wilsey, bringing over 15 years of ed tech and marketing expertise to your earbuds.
And I'm Seth Odell, joining the Pulse with my own adventures from leading marketing at top universities to founding Kanahoma, one of the industry's fastest growing digital marketing agencies.
Each week, we bring you the kind of insider insights you typically only find over cocktails with your pals at a conference.
It's fast, it's fun, and it's designed for you, the busy higher ed professional.
You're not just listening to another podcast.
You're checking the pulse of higher education.
Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher ed professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. It does feel good to laugh. And actually laugh.
Ha ha ha.
Ha 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 ha.
Oh, Mallory.
And that's how you know we're not AI today. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Higher Ed Pulse with real life Mallory and Seth.
Real life, no robot.
How you doing, Seth?
I'm doing great, Mallory. And this is real Seth, so everyone listen. This is not robot Seth. No AI, not today.
How do I know for sure? Ha ha ha.
Well, you gotta listen to how we laugh. Yes, AI has not solved for that yet. That's the only thing they haven't solved for. But once they solve for the laughs, then they're the last one laughing.
Ooh. Just end the episode there. We're done. Sorry, y'all. No.
Exactly. It's done for them. We did our job.
All right. Well, we're going to dive right in per usual. And we're in April now. April is National Community College Month. And this year's theme is cultivating skills for the future. So in honor, Seth and I are focusing this episode on those very topics. And I'll say it now so I don't have to say it over and over. There are going to be a ton of links in the show notes for you to consume, research, articles, all sorts of things. So definitely check those out. Wealth of information there. But first up, Seth, let's talk about community colleges.
Let's do it.
2 reports were recently released by researchers at the Community College Research Center and the Aspen Institute, one focused on community colleges and the other on four-year institutions. These reports analyze student data from the National Student Clearinghouse to measure the performance of community colleges and four-year schools in enabling students who started at a community college. And Seth, the data is really concerning.
Yeah.
More than 80% of community college students intend to transfer to four-year colleges, but only about a third wind up actually doing that. And among that third, only 48% go on to complete their bachelor degrees. There was no state in this report where even a fourth of community college students went on to earn their 4-year degree. And you might not be surprised to hear, but there are certain populations that are at even lower rates: low income, older students, Black and Hispanic students. Only about a quarter of students who transfer to for-profit or online-only institutions earn a bachelor's degree, compared to 57% of those who transfer to public 4-year or private 4-year institutions. I just dropped a lot of numbers into your earbuds, so if you followed through all of that, or even if you didn't, at the end of the day, the data is just simply concerning. These transfers aren't happening, and when they do, the completions are not happening at over 50%. I don't know, Seth. I mean, this feels like a solvable problem to me, but what's your take?
Community college populations are particularly challenging to recruit. Spring is traditionally when traditional institutions think about it, although they obviously are being recruited at all times throughout the year when they finish terms. But it really feels like spring is when traditional institutions kind of like think about how do we get those students who are finishing their associate's degree to enroll. And it's a lot easier said than done. It is not a population that responds to paid media. Like people talk about trying to geo-target community colleges. Those kind of things don't work. You can put some posters up. That doesn't work. I think the reality is that these are folks more often than not who are already obviously non-traditional students. Not all, but many of them are non-traditional, meaning that they are working already. They're commuting already. They have other things going on in their lives. And so this, in my opinion, comes down to how do we make this as easy as possible? And that means that we can't just rely on like Facebook or Google ads or traditional marketing activities. The first one to me is that this is about people more than about promotion. Where I have seen community college recruitment be successful is really focusing on like actual outreach, like going out to community colleges, doing outreach. And the second piece is partnerships more than promotion, meaning actual partnerships with community college institutions. When there are like direct admission relationships where people already know they're going to be admitted, they already know what their tuition is going to be, those pathways can be powerful. But without them, it is difficult to expect or rely on an independent community college student to navigate that process entirely on their own. And unfortunately, many community colleges are under-resourced, so the ability to provide support for that is harder. And so, the couple things I would say to folks who are thinking it's springtime, how do we recruit the latest class of community college students? I'd say first, based on the data you shared, it's more important than ever. This is a really critical population that would benefit from a 4-year degree potentially. And so let's make sure that we're providing that. But I think we got to like get away from our computer screens and get off our Facebook ads and like actually go out and meet folks. And this is still an old school recruitment strategy. Recruiting community college students, I think, is much more like recruiting traditional high school students, even though they're non-traditional students. And so we have to apply more traditional recruitment strategies to this non-traditional population, getting out there person to person, setting up booths, going to fairs, but also really focusing on partnerships. I've even worked with institutions in my past where we had classrooms embedded on community colleges so they could do some of that dual enrollment further in the degree while still staying there. Meaning, while you finish your associates, you can get a head start by also studying at night and getting further into your 4-year program. Those kind of programs are all unique. They all take a lot of effort to establish, but I feel like that's the complicated answer to this complicated problem, is that we can't just provide some simple solution and expect for it to work. So I don't know, that's my first 2 cents, I think, on looking at how we can try to recruit community college students this spring.
Well, I think you said something really important. These are students who disproportionately have time and financial constraints on them. They are not traditional students. Many of them are adults who are supporting families, maybe working 1 or 2 jobs alongside earning their degree. And they just come with a need for higher touch. And so your point about people over promotion is key. There are so many moments in this process where there is friction that is causing the students to stop out, whether that is just simply persisting in their community college program, the whole application process that surrounds the transfer to the 4-year school, then actually enrolling in that institution, and then persisting in that program. I mean, at every step of the way, there's an opportunity for students to stop out. And indeed, the data also shows that they do. So in order to ease that pain, it has to be a high touch methodology. But I remember when I worked on a campus, there was one person at the entire college who dealt with transfer students. Yeah, there were, 12, 13 of us to handle the undergrad population that came in the door as freshmen. I mean, when you have such resource imbalance within the institution itself, how can one person be tasked with solving this massive problem? It's just never going to work.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think one of the takeaways is we may need to rethink community college recruitment as a whole. Because I think we're also seeing the area where these students are choosing to study is they're moving to online more than on-campus four-year programs, and they're looking for asynchronous versus synchronous offerings, back to the fact that they're facing life challenges primarily related to schedule and finance. And so, we've needed to rethink the offering, and we also need to rethink the outreach. And I think both of those things have to be done before we see some of these numbers, unfortunately, improve.
So, as we're thinking about this year's theme of cultivating skills for the future, I know that you've been doing a lot of thinking around the vocational training program side of education and apprenticeships. Talk to us.
Absolutely. So the parallel conversation that happened for me this week, a friend of mine, Paxton Ritter from iDesign, shared an article on LinkedIn from the Wall Street Journal called How Gen Z is Becoming the Tool Belt Generation. And it called out something that I have seen and predicted, and I think some other folks, hopefully listeners have as well, which is that, as confidence in the degree is declining, there's going to most likely be a renaissance when it comes to vocational training programs and vocational work. And I think we are starting to see that. That's what the Wall Street Journal talked about. And more folks are looking for degree alternatives. There are fast track paths to six-figure incomes by owning or running your own business in whether it's plumbing or HVAC or all sorts of other fields. But it's interesting that outside of community colleges, the nonprofit space has not dabbled as deep in the vocational industries outside of areas like healthcare or even flight schools. So what's happened is the previous boon in vocational work really came from the for-profit industry. And for the for-profits that are left, they are growing, like Lincoln Education Services, publicly traded. Their stock price is up 75% in the past year. Huge enrollment growth from their last earnings. I read their last earnings report last week, and they're opening up new locations. And so we are seeing vocational growth and demand for vocational programs increase. And I think that's being tied to public sentiment shifts in the value of the degree. And so I think there's two topics today, because it came up twice, right? I talked to somebody yesterday on the phone about it who said they're interested in apprenticeship programs, which we can unpack in a minute. And I talked to a group of leaders this morning, and this topic came up. And I think the key thing is you have to look at your education portfolio, and you can't just think of it as the degree, but you also can't just think of it as the micro-credential. So much time is being spent on the topic of micro-credentials and courses, but what's not being talked about is expanding beyond the traditional degree type of educational offering and thinking about vocational work instead. We know demand for that's going to grow like crazy in the healthcare space, and that is an area that traditional nonprofit institutions have played at historically. But I just think the growth in vocational training programs is one of the biggest shifts that's taking place. It's great to see it getting headlines because hopefully it wakes some folks up. But if this is the first you've thought about it, I would encourage you to think about it deeply. And if you've been thinking about it for a while, slide into my DMs. Let's talk, because I just find it so interesting. It's a topic that I'm really passionate about. And so, yeah, I don't know your thoughts on that, Mallory, but I just think that the vocational work is a big piece. And I think we can't think of college just as a degree anymore.
Well, I think that the US has really created a more friendly model towards going from high school directly into college. But this has really just been in a post-World War II world that has happened. And it's notable that there's, when you compare to other countries, particularly around apprenticeship programs, other countries have participation rates in both vocational and apprenticeship programs that are anywhere from 2 to 8 times more per capita than here in the US. So this is just, I think college is something that now is just absolutely ingrained in our culture as like, this is your path towards how you become successful. But when we think about even in, some of the less traditional vocational or apprenticeship paths, entry-level roles, just go look on LinkedIn right now. There is a clear experience gap that is growing, and employers are increasingly looking for very specific skills and work experiences, even for entry-level positions. And when I think about the world that I live in every single day, generative AI might be eating entry-level positions for lunch. Some of the stuff that an intern used to do or somebody right out of college might have been tasked with, I can probably go to ChatGPT and get just as good of work out of that AI tool, freeing me up to do higher value activities.
Yeah, I think the apprenticeship piece is really key to call out. The federal government has not been spending as much on apprenticeship programs, but people may not know that's not of their own fault, actually. The federal government actually has tens of billions of dollars in money that's been allocated over the next 10 years to federally approved apprenticeship programs that don't yet exist. And the reason is that there's not enough institutions that are able to jump through the hoops from traditional nonprofit, like federal aid receiving institutions to get those apprenticeship programs launched. I was at a wedding last fall talking to a lobbyist, and he said, if you're in the education space, you need to be looking at apprenticeship programs because the amount of federal aid that is available. So not only what it means, they will help you fund to build apprenticeship programs, but that the program themselves can be tuition free many times. And so these are programs where the student doesn't necessarily even pay if they're in high need areas where the federal government thinks there need to be more folks prepared to join the workforce. And so I just think that there's something taking place across all these conversations today. The shifts in community college completion, but also the growth in vocational programs. And then specifically that sliver, that piece about that related apprenticeship programs, I think is a huge topic. And it's a topic I've never seen talked about publicly in a large way. And so for me this week, those were definitely the ones that were talked about. Spring is always community college recruiting, the vocational training thing. People have known about it, but seeing it in the Wall Street Journal sort of wakes people up that it's here. And then again, the fact that the apprenticeship programs was brought up again to me this week, to me just shows all these things are being talked about, there's buzz about it. What to do about it, I don't know just yet, but I think at a minimum, listen and learn is definitely where I am trying to be when it comes to these topics.
Yeah, there's a great episode that just dropped on Higher Ed Geek last week with Ryan Craig, who's the managing director at Achieve Partners, on apprenticeship programs as a pathway to prosperity. It is well worth the listen if anyone's looking to dive a little bit more into this topic. Some really great stats are shared in that episode as well to help make a case for why it really matters and why we should be investing time and energy into it.
I will totally listen to that. I have not listened to that yet.
And if you're looking for even more great episodes, you've got 2 more dropping on the Pulse this week. You won't want to miss them. First up, you will hear a special interview with yours truly and Artist Kadu, Element 451 CEO and founder. We sat down to talk about new AI products that are going to have a massive impact on how we communicate with students and how our website visitors find information. Then on Thursday, you'll get part 4 of 5 in our series on mergers and acquisitions. President and Dr. Ian Mortimer joins us to discuss the reasons why certain mergers don't pan out, balancing rational and emotional facets of mergers, and alternative and innovative education models.
Love it. And if you've been enjoying the Higher Ed Pulse, Mallory and I would love to ask, please consider doing us a favor. Make sure to hit subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating if you think we've earned it. And even if you're feeling extra generous, feel free to drop us a short review. Obviously, we love doing this podcast. We love the feedback from all of you. We'd love to reach more folks and provide more value. And all those things will help us. And if you haven't been enjoying the podcast, but you still listen this long, 1, I don't know why you're still here. But 2, message me privately. Just let me know privately how I can improve. And I'm ready to improve. But otherwise, hit subscribe, 5-star rating, and that extra generous short review would all be super, super welcomed. We would love it. And thank you so much, as always, for listening.
Some of our best topics recently have come from subscriber and listener recommended ideas. So y'all, we really are paying attention. And if you have research you've found or something you just want to hear us sound off on for 10, 15 minutes, do not hesitate to shoot us a message and let us know. Seth, as always, it goes by too quickly, but I'm going to get to see you in San Diego this weekend. Get the sunshine ready. I am so excited.
Me too. Can't wait.
We'll see y'all soon. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye. The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.